opportunity to get ahead and an opportunity to learn. You know, what we all have in common is that we all have trials. Raise your hand if there are things in your life that are standing in the way of you getting to where you want to go. Now raise your hand if there are things in your life that you feel like are oppressive. Well, everyone should have their hand up because Satan wants to kill you. And I think that's safe to say he's an oppressor. You know, at the end of the day, we all have problems. Yes. We all have trials. We all have people. We all have someone I dare say is oppressing us. That they are opposing us. And yet, every single day, what you have in common with every human being on this planet is that everyone has 24 hours in a day. Yeah. And what you make of that time is going to determine the quality of life that you have. Now, you may not be as smart as other people. It just means that you're going to have to all the more utilize the time that you do have. Your ethnicity may pose challenges. Everyone has obstacles in their lives. It's not whether we have obstacles. Anyone who feels that it's hard to get ahead in the United States of America is ignorant. Go to the Congo. Go to India. Go to countries where you will never learn to write or read. Go to countries where the average income is less than $2 a day, and then tell me that you're oppressed. And then tell me that you can't get ahead. Everyone in life has opportunity. Every day you wake up is a new day. And what happened yesterday, you could have failed an exam yesterday. It doesn't mean that you can't wake up today and decide to get ahead of your classes. Every day is an opportunity. And this week I learned a couple things. I learned that all people are selfish. And I learned that emotions aren't real. Not entirely. In Psalm 119, verse 1. Hopefully I've caught all of your attention. I can tell by the scathing looks that for some of you it's a negative attention, but that's okay. At least I have your attention. In Psalm 119, verse 1, the Bible says, "Blessed are they who keep his statutes," or blessed are they who are blameless, who walk according to the law of the Lord. Blessed are they who keep his statutes and seek him with all their heart. The word blessed is an interesting word, isn't it? Yes. It is the antonym of the word cursed. And yet, a blessing and a curse is not a thing or a moment, but rather it is a state. You see, many of us in here may be cursed with the mindset of a victim. Many of us in this room may be cursed with entitlement. Many of us may be blessed with the ethic of hard work. See, blessing, the word blessed means superlatively happy. The word superlative, means of the highest state or regard. And so what the word blessed literally means is the highest state of happiness. Are they whose ways are blameless? It doesn't say those who are blameless. It says those whose ways are blameless. Who walk according to the law of the Lord. Now the law of the Lord for us is the scriptures. Now, maybe some of you guys don't like that, but as we're going to look into the scriptures, what's the alternative? It says, blessed, happiest are they who seek him with all their heart. Why? Because he's the only thing worthwhile to seek. The title of this morning's lesson is The Quest to be Blessed. There were really two things I want to talk about: self-righteousness and emotion. Wow. You know, I thought, what do we need to hear? We have a Zechariah series going on, but I thought, you know what? The Word of God is always awesome. But I don't know if that's necessarily the appropriate application. You know, we live in a very entitled and ignorant culture. Whether you consider yourself liberal or conservative or any of these things, we still live in a highly ignorant society. We live in a society that's based on taking sides. And yet, ignorance is dangerous. All the more when you live in an educated society where ignorance doesn't have to be an option. We live in a world where people's ambition in life is to be happy. But being happy and being blessed are not the same thing. Happiness is the sensation you get on your wedding day. Blessed is the sensation you get on your 50th wedding anniversary. Happiness is when you get into UCLA. Being blessed is when you graduate from UCLA. You know, happiness for Mary is going to be getting baptized today. But blessed is when she dies faithful. See, the difference between happiness and being blessed is you got to work for it. And I think that if we're going to enter into the quest to be blessed, we need to really establish what true righteousness is and the purpose of emotion. Point number one, the wealth of self. The wealth of self. You know, the word wealth means what? An abundance of something. An excessive possession of be it money or of something. Many people would say that you may have money, but that doesn't make you wealthy. The wealth of self. What is the wealth of self? Well, there's very little. In Proverbs chapter 11, let's turn there very quickly. Let's see what Solomon had to say about wealth and ourself. In Proverbs 11, verse 23. He says, the desire of the righteous ends only in good, but the hope of the wicked only in wrath. One man gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. A generous man will prosper. He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. People curse the man who hoards grain, but blessing crowns him who is willing to sell. He who seeks good finds goodwill, but evil comes to him who searches for it. Whoever trusts in riches, in his riches will fall, but the righteous will thrive like a green leaf. I think that Solomon, the author, felt very strongly that he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. In Acts chapter 20, verse 35, Paul quotes Jesus saying, "It is more blessed to give than to receive. It is more fulfilling, satisfying to give than to receive." Yeah. But the problem with that is that we live in a culture that is self-obsessed. Facebook, Instagram, everything in our lives, as if we didn't have enough. All we can talk about is more that we want. America is one of the most prosperous countries in the world. To say it's not is silly. There may be a couple of countries that have a stronger economy, but look at the world. Yeah. Africa, it's devastated. The Middle East, most of South America, Venezuela. The top 3 most dangerous cities on the planet are all in Venezuela. The entire city, the economy has completely collapsed. It's completely collapsed. The average income is $12 a month, and it costs $6 to get a sandwich. The economy is destroyed. To say that we're not blessed would be silly. We live in a country that is so prosperous that we want more. We want more. And yet right here, to take is to lose. You see, the more you take, the bigger the hole you dig inside of yourself. Yes. And yet, the author says that he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. What's cool is if you break the proverb up by verse for the first half and the second half. So verse 23 would read like this: the desire of the righteous ends only in good. One man gives freely, yet gains even more. A generous man will prosper. He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. People curse the man who hoards grain, but blessing crowns him who is willing to sell. He who seeks good finds goodwill. Whoever trusts in his riches, but the righteous will thrive like a green leaf. Now look at the opposite. It says, the hope of the wicked only ends in wrath. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. People curse the man who hoards grain. Evil comes on him who searches for it. Whoever trusts in riches will fall. What do we see here? We see that this is not a decision. This is a way of being. To be a giver and not a taker. The wealth of self is that the more you give, the more you have. Yeah, right. But sometimes, don't we all have needs? Right. Don't we all have wants? Yeah. And can't we get a little scared that if I don't make sure this happens in my life, then who will? Yeah. Well, Jesus has an answer. Turn to Matthew chapter 6.
Come on, bro. Help us out.
We live in a faithless time, or even those that go to church look just like those that don't. In Matthew 6, verse 25, I want you to imagine being there with Jesus as he said this to a crowd. He says, therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, about your grades, about that exam that's coming up, about your kids' grades, about how much you make. He says, is not life more important than food? Isn't your life more important than UCLA? Isn't your life more important than your career? Look at the birds of the air. I'll tell you what, they don't sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Guys, are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? Why do you worry about clothes? See how the lilies of the field grow? They don't labor or spin, yet I tell you that not even Solomon, the man who wrote the Proverbs we just read, not even Solomon was dressed as beautifully as one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you? Oh, you have little faith. So don't worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? What about my exam coming up? What about my job? What about my life? For the pagans run after all these things. And your heavenly Father, he knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow is going to worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. You know, it is silly when we think about the things that we allow to consume us, isn't it? And yet right here, Jesus saw it grievous to even allow what we're going to eat or drink or wear to consume us. Now, for us, that may seem fickle, but in a society where you're not going to eat unless you focus on it, in a society where they didn't have purified water, you could only get it from purified streams. These are things you actually worried about. And Jesus goes, I don't want you to worry about these things. You've got to trust God. You see, at the end of the day, it's not an issue of how much you have. It's a faith issue. Right. That no matter how challenging your circumstances may be, just a mustard seed of faith can move a mountain. So why don't we choose to have a mustard seed of faith? I mean, how long does it take to get a mustard seed of faith? Wow. Maybe an hour of prayer? 2 hours of prayer? Is that not worth maintaining the integrity of our relationship with God?
Come on.
And yet the temptation is to focus on ourselves. Right. You don't understand. If I don't get this essay done, if I don't study for this exam, I'm not going to be able to get the grade I need or go to the school I want to go. This is more important. Amen. And so it got me thinking, what is self-righteousness? You see, because right here Jesus says, don't worry about anything. Instead, I want you to seek first. The word seek first in the Greek means to crave to the point of demanding. I saw those donuts out there. Some of you crave to the point of demanding them. And I said, Brother Jamel, third donut? Come on, bro. Dang. We got people visiting. Leaving all those nasty peanut butter ones. Shame on you, brother. But Jesus says you got to seek first His kingdom. It's not yours. It's not mine. The West isn't mine. It's God's. But it says His righteousness. Sometimes we look at righteousness like a bit of an ambiguity. We go, what is it? It's very fluid. No, righteousness simply means to fulfill the obligation of a relationship. Yeah. So in my relationship with my beautiful wife, to be righteous to her is to be a great husband. Amen. But that's different than what it means to be righteous for my daughter, to be a great father. That's different than what it means to be righteous to you guys. Yeah. To be righteous is to fulfill an obligation. And yet Jesus says, seek first His kingdom and His righteousness. I want you to crave to the point of demanding that you fulfill your obligation to God more than anything else in your life. Because the reality is if you cannot fulfill your obligation to God, you will never be able to fulfill your obligation to a person. And so it got me thinking, what is self-righteousness? You know, I think that self-righteousness is a righteousness that you associate to yourself, which is very dangerous. Because it means that your confidence is not coming from the Word of God, but your own self-perception. I believe that like the story of Jesus, the Pharisee and the tax collector, the Pharisee comes in the temple and he goes, God, thank you that I'm not like him. And the tax collector goes, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And Jesus tells you, I tell you the truth, that tax collector left more justified than that Pharisee. Self-righteousness is dangerous. But I thought about it. Is that it? Is it just righteousness that we associate to ourselves? You see, the word righteous means to fulfill the obligation of a relationship. So self-righteousness is to fulfill your obligation to yourself above and beyond all others. Wow. See, being self-righteous doesn't mean you think you're better. It just means you think you're more important. That fulfilling your own obligations is more important than your spouse. It's more important than even your grades. Here's the thing. If you're a bad student, you're unrighteous to your teacher. Right. You have to get good grades if you're a disciple. Amen. You go, well, where's the self-righteousness there? The procrastination? I always find it interesting, like, it's like, bro, you don't understand, like, I got to study for this exam. Is there a reason you waited until the day before? I don't think you were that busy, and if you think you were, then there's a self-deception that needs to be addressed. If I don't get this in, I mean, bro, this is important, then maybe you should have treated it as important. No, your homework's not important. That paper's not important. Yourself is important. You were willing to mess around for weeks. But then when the time comes when, well, I don't want to not get a good grade because, well, then that wouldn't fulfill my obligation to myself. Then everyone else goes out the window. And those that don't understand or agree with you are insensitive. They're prideful. They're controlling. Maybe you need to be controlled. Because you can't control yourself. You can't sit down to do what you're supposed to do. And I think that as I thought about this, I go, man, what do those that I think are going to be visiting need to hear? What do the members need to hear? I think that we are a bunch of self-righteous people. I don't think we think we're better than anyone else. That's not what I mean. I just think that we think we're more important than other people. You go walk down the street, you feel prompted to share your faith. You don't do it. Why? Because your own self-esteem is more important than their salvation. It's very simple. Christianity is the simplest thing in the world. It's also the hardest thing in the world. Because it means you got to take the self out of righteousness. If you want to be someone who seeks his righteousness, you must remove yourself, your pride, your opinions. You can look through the whole Bible. There's no book of opinions. But some of us, it's like Mormonism 2.0. You're going to write your own book. Dangerous grounds. Dangerous grounds. And yet, right here, Jesus says, I don't want you to worry. I want you to seek first his kingdom, that's us, and his righteousness. At the end of the day, the question becomes, what's the right thing to do before God? Before God. Not how did he treat me or how did she treat me. What's the right thing to do? And that's the decision you make. But where do you get your moral compass from? I think that's the most concerning thing about the country we live in, is there's absolutely no moral compass. Everything is an opinion matter. You have all these movements, Black Lives Matter, the LGBTQ community, and all these movements, which, amen, they're fighting for something, but what's it based on? Where's the morality rooted?
Come on, bro.
You see, as a Christian, you have to love all people.
Come on.
You have to love people. But you also have to be righteous before God, that wrong is wrong. People always go, oh, Christians hate homosexuals. No, they don't. I love everyone. And I believe a sin is a sin.
Come on, bro.
So if you're in an immoral relationship, the Bible has the same thing to say about you as it does as someone who's in a homosexual relationship. A spade is a spade. Sin is sin. Now, I want to love everyone. I want to help everyone. But if this isn't our standard, we have no footing. We have no footing for us to walk. There's no morality. And our righteousness cannot come from our self-perception. It needs to come from the Bible. And you know what that does? That is true freedom. Because what you believe and who you are is actually based on something. It's not an opinion. Because the reality is, all over the world, people's views and opinions, they vary. I don't want to deny the hardships and challenges that there are in the United States of America. But let's be honest, guys. There are many countries where you would still be killed if you're a black person. There are many countries where it's not harder to get ahead. It's impossible. You're not going to give me this job because I'm black? Yes. You don't belong here. There are many countries like that. You go to a place like Nigeria, they're not going to accept Jason just because he's black. He's not Nigerian. I love our Nigerian sisters here. I bet you if they were to go visit home, they'd get teased because they have a little bit of an American accent starting. The world is very segregated. It's very segregated. We have to count our blessings. See, righteousness before God is what matters, but what is righteousness based on? It's based on the Bible. So why do we give up? Right? We try to be a Christian, don't we? We try to give our whole heart. Why do we give up? We lose passion. I love etymology, which is the history of how words came to be. And the word passion comes from the word suffering. A lot of people don't realize that. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Think about the things you're willing to suffer for. Are they not the things that you're the most passionate about?
Right.
And why do we give up in classes that we don't like? Because we're not passionate about them, therefore we're not willing to suffer for them. You see, the only way you're going to excel in your relationship with God is when you're willing to suffer. And there are many scriptures that say it was not only given to you to believe in him, but also to suffer for him, being Jesus. To be passionate. And isn't true passion what we look for in a leader? How was Adolf Hitler able to rouse an entire country to do the heinous things they did? He was a man of passion. You don't realize, but he gave over 3,000 speeches before he became chancellor. You don't realize that he was in prison for years for what he believed in. You don't realize the level of passion and suffering this man was willing to endure. And so he exuded passion. And so when the people were in need, that's who they followed. People follow passionate people. You look at the Muslim religion, the fastest growing religion in the world. It's a people of passion. You know, you may argue on whether, the radical Islamicism is real Islam and all these things, but at the end of the day, you can't argue that these are passionate people.
That's right.
That they're willing to be ostracized. They're willing to be persecuted. They're willing to suffer for what they believe in. So when we endure suffering of any kind and we give up, what's the real issue? You lack passion. And in Hebrews chapter 12, if we could turn there real quick. Hebrews chapter 12.
Come on, bro. Come on, Ricky.
I want to minister to you this morning, which means that I got to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Amen. In verse 7, the author says, endure, persevere, push through. Hardship is discipline. God is treating you as sons. What's missing in the world for most people? A dad. What's missing in your relationship with God when you give up? God. Look what he says. For what son is not disciplined by his father? If you're not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are illegitimate children, not true sons. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us. Sadly, many have not. And we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of our spirits and live? Our fathers disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, perception, but rather painful. He says later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. What is the greatest hindrance to our passion? When do we stop suffering? Is when we lose sight of why we're suffering.
That's right.
And the reason that you suffer in your walk with God is because you have God and there's you. There's sin in your life. I want to break down eternity very simply for you. There's heaven and there's hell. Who goes to hell? Satan. Who's in heaven? God. In your life, who are you following? People think that they're sent to hell. No. You go to hell.
Right.
Hell was created, read the Bible, hell was created for Satan and his angels that rebelled. And it's only those that follow Satan and his angels that rebelled that go to hell.
Right.
See, remember, blessed are they whose ways are blameless. You may think that sex before marriage is not a big deal, except the problem is God made us in his image, and that's not how he created things to be.
Right.
Therefore, who are you following? You're following Satan. You may think that partying once in a while here and there is not a big deal, but here's the problem. You're following Satan.
Yeah.
You're not following God. And what is the end of every road that Satan leads? Emptiness. Emptiness.
That's true.
What is at the end of the road that God leads you down? Happiness, satisfaction, being blessed.
Yeah.
Waiting until you're married to be intimate. What's the long-term consequence? You stay married. You're able to raise children.
Yeah. Come on.
What's the consequence of having sex before you're married? You can get an STD.
Yep.
Does that sound like a good idea?
No.
Does that sound like something God would want?
No.
You could get raped.
Yeah.
Abortion. What is abortion at the end of the day? I thought about it. When you're married, you get pregnant. It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what is abortion? Abortion is, I don't want to have a family with this person. I don't want to be with this person.
Wow.
It's self-righteous. And so you murder your own child. And yet, where does it all start? Who are you following?
Yeah.
I find that following God is painful at first.
Yep.
It's painful. But it leads to being blessed. I find that following Satan is intriguing and satisfying initially, but it always leads to pain. It always leads to you being cursed. And what it really comes down to is the power of decision. You know, this week, I was so encouraged because we're able to plant these 2 new Bible talks, to be able to see the Fentons plant a Bible talk, to see Dom and Allison plant a Bible talk. But there's another Bible talk that we're going to be planting next week.
Okay.
And that is the Bible talk of the seed sowers. And this is a Bible talk with our more seasoned sisters, our older sisters. And, you know, I talked to Carrie Sue, who disciples Elizabeth, who will be leading it. And I go, you know, sis, I don't know if I want there to be a Bible talk. I want to appreciate the fact that they're older, that maybe being in a Bible talk every week, and it's a lot for them. She goes, bro. They, on their own initiative, did a Bible study from 9:30 at night until nearly midnight. Trust me, they want to do it. I go, whoa, we got some single brothers that aren't even willing to do a study from 10 to midnight. And I don't think it's really anything complicated. I just think that these are women of righteousness. I don't think it's complicated. I think that they saw that, sure, maybe they want to go to sleep, but they didn't put their needs above someone else. And so I want to challenge us. This week, all of our Bible discussions are hitting the reset button. And the cool thing about a reset button is that it's fresh. You get to get a new home screen. You could even change the language to Mandarin for all I care. But it's a fresh start. There's no lingering viruses. There's no lingering downloads. It's fresh. You get to start anew. But isn't that every day for us? Every day you can make a decision to hit the reset button. Now, part of it may be that you have to endure the consequences of your decisions. But you get to hit the reset button. Every Bible talk. You know, I want to challenge us to make a decision to devote ourselves to being men and women of righteousness. Not self-righteousness. Righteousness. But to do that, you got to be like your dad. See, God disciplines us so that we may share in his holiness. So that we could be more like him. The reason you're suffering is because you don't match up with God. But if you'd be willing to persevere, you would learn, you would grow, and you would become more like Jesus. The word discipline and the word training in the Greek are the same. He's not punishing you. He's trying to train you. You're his little boy. You're his little girl. You're his princess. He wants to train you to be a woman of integrity and character. He wants to train you to be a man who's a leader to those around him. But you got to keep your eye on the prize. That's the wealth of self. Point number 2, let's close out. Devotion to emotion. What is emotion? Let's get back to our etymology here. This blew my mind, okay? So much so that I had to talk about it in the sermon. When we think of emotion, what do we think of? I'd like to get a little humor here. Let's just pick on a couple people here. Jasmine, what do you think emotion means?
How you feel.
How you feel? All about the feels, right? What else?
Pain.
Who, what? Can't hear.
Pain.
Pain? What else? What's emotion, Jason?
Emotion is action or feeling.
Okay. He's being emotional right now. Omar. Tears. Emotion is interesting because, you know, I think it's overdone at times. But the word emotion literally means after action. I heard that. Blew my mind. Think about it. When you get up in the morning, you know I should work out. How do you feel after action? You feel good. How do you feel if you don't do it? Don't you feel a sense of deficiency? In James chapter 4, in verse 17, James says this, anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it, sins. Now what does the word sin mean? It means to miss the mark. It means to fall short. It's nothing grievous necessarily. It just means that this is what you're aiming for and you barely missed it. It's not the same thing as being a sinner or in sin. But he says anyone who knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. Likewise, anyone who knows the good they ought not to do, but does it, it is sin for them. And what is emotion? Emotion is the sensation you have after you take action. And I thought about it. Wow, I'm not a psychologist, but this is the root cause to depression. I believe that depression for some is a real thing. I don't believe that it's a real thing for half of all citizens of the U.S. That's how many people are on some kind of a antidepressant. And what it is it's a deficiency. When you're depressed, what happens? You don't want to get out of bed. First thing, you don't take action to get up. And from there, it's just a downward spiral. And people have literally not taken action for so long that the deficiency they feel becomes their identity. And yet, we have to be devoted to our emotion. Not in a negative sense. Godly emotion, which means that when your heart prompts you to do something, it's coming from one of two places. It's coming from God or it's coming from your flesh. And and how do you know if it's coming from the flesh? Well, it goes against the Bible. You may feel like hooking up with someone. It's wrong. You've got to take action. And sometimes to take action is to not do what you know you shouldn't do. And so when you do that, what happens? You feel efficient. You feel a sense of accomplishment. Right. It's like reading a book. A lot of people don't like to read. They say if you want to read something, it's very simple. Just read the first page. If you can't read the first page, just read the first paragraph. And if you can't even find it in yourself to read the first paragraph, read the first sentence. And if you can't even do that, read the first word. Because if you can read the first word, you can read the first sentence. And if you can read the first sentence, you can read the first paragraph, the first page, the first chapter. You can read the book. Amen. It's about taking action in your life. And I think one of the most dangerous things in our lives is that we live in a time where people are victimized. What's the problem with being a victim? You've been led to believe that it is out of your control to take action. But let me tell you something. You're not a victim. Jesus is not a victim. What did Jesus tell Pilate when he said, hey, listen, I have the power to release you? What did Jesus say? You would have no power except what has been granted to you on behalf of God. Jesus says, I don't have to be here. I want to be here. I'm not a victim. It's my choice to die on the cross. Amen. In the same way, you're not a victim. It's your choice to go to that party or not. It's your choice to engage in impurity. It's your choice to slack off before your exam. It's your choice. You've got to make a decision to take action. And if you don't, amen. Wake up the next morning and go, I didn't take action yesterday, but today I will take action. Amen. It's your decision to take action in being a man and a woman of righteousness. If you walk away from here and you don't dig into the scriptures and you don't set up to study the Bible, I'm telling you what's going to happen. Yep. You'll have a sense of deficiency inside of you. Yep. Because you know you should do the good you ought to do. Yep. And what happens when we're deficient? There's a gaping hole. And so what do? We try to fill it. We try to fill it with Netflix. We try to fill it with food. We try to fill it with relationships. We try to fill it with fun. We try to fill it with things that are not meant to fulfill you. And it just digs a deeper hole, and a deeper hole, and a deeper hole. And the problem is that you're taking action in the wrong things. And the root issue is that you don't even respect yourself anymore. You've been victimized. There's nothing I can do. This is a problem even in the religious world. So much so that people don't even preach on it anymore. You dig into the scriptures, you go, hey, this is what it means to be a disciple. They go, but that means my church isn't disciples. This isn't fair. This can't be right. This can't be the truth. No. Take action. It's what the Word of God says. And if you walk away going, well, I just choose not to believe that, you will, inside of yourself, dug a deeper hole of deficiency because you know the truth. You know the good you ought to do, and yet you choose not to do it. What is emotion? Emotion is an augmentation of life. What happens when somebody passes away or something traumatizing happens and you choose not to mourn? That's dangerous. There's a time to cry. You look at the people of the Old Testament, these people knew how to flat mourn. Man, they would take their clothes off, get sackcloth, and they would just sit in ashes and put it on their head. Ooh, for days. And then the Bible says oftentimes they would just get up and go about their life. Because they dealt with their heart. I want to challenge us this morning. Are you dealing with your heart? I think about this last week for me. Tuesday morning I woke up and I was in the feels. I was feeling a little angry. I was feeling a little hurt. I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling fearful. Just ticked off about different situations in my life. And I go, man, okay, I can't just sit in this. And so that morning, I read the book of Habakkuk in my quiet time. And I know you guys know what the book of Habakkuk is all about, so I'm not going to talk about it. But the book of Habakkuk is written after the Israelites were laid siege by the Babylonians. The Babylonians came in, killed, raped, killed babies. Then basically, Habakkuk goes, why do wicked people prosper and you do nothing, God? And at the end of the letter, basically God just says, listen, the wicked may prosper, but not forever. A thief may come in and take people's wealth and put them to poverty, but it won't last forever. It will come back on their own head. He says, the wicked may prosper, but the righteous will endure. And yet, I love the last few verses of the book of Habakkuk. And it stuck with me. He says, though the fig tree may not produce its fruit, and though the vine may not cast its grapes, the righteous will endure forever. He says, my hope will be in you. And then I read Hebrews 11 about faith. And I go, wow. The issue is I just lack faith. At the end of the day, the whole world could be falling apart.
Totally.
But it's my decision to take action and be faithful.
Yeah.
To do the right thing. And you know what happened? All that negative emotion I had, it fell off. It was gone. Because I took action in my life. Oftentimes the right thing to do is the hard thing to do. Yeah. Don't be a coward.
Yeah.
Take courage. Without fear, there is no courage. Take courage. Do the right thing. I want to encourage you, if you're visiting, we're going to have lunch after this. Do a Bible study.
Yeah.
Sit down, look at scriptures. Make the decision to devote yourself to righteousness. And then you'll have the emotion that God wants to give you. Then you'll be blessed. You'll be blessed as God intended it. Let's finish in Ecclesiastes Chapter 13. I got to finish with this. The whole book of Ecclesiastes is about the purpose of life. And at the very end, Solomon says, now all has been heard. You may feel like you have a specific case. It's already been heard. Well, what about, I already heard it. What about, I already know you're going to say, I've heard it all. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commands. For this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. This was the last words that Solomon would echo in his life. That the whole duty of man. So if you get through life and you make $1 billion and you start a company that ends world hunger, but you never become a true disciple, you failed in life. That seems harsh. But you got to make a decision. Are you going to take action to believe the Bible or not? The whole duty of man is to fear God. You know, as we walk away, I want to inspire us that your destiny can change from this very moment.
Yeah, totally.
And it's a good destiny because it's guided by God. But it requires that you take action. It requires that you make a decision to be a man or woman of righteousness to God.
Yeah.
To be your best before Him so that you can be your best to those around you. And then every single one of us will finish our quest to be blessed. To God be the glory.